Have you ever stopped to consider that just maybe you already have the answers, that you already know what to do to live your very best life? Oftentimes we go searching, paying large sums of money. We go looking to conferences and all of these great resources when in actuality, we may be the very best resource to help elevate ourselves to the next level. Now, keep in mind, I'm very much a fan of coaching, consulting. I've got coaches myself, but I also believe that oftentimes we seek after those things to avoid the reality that we already know the answer. In today's episode, I'm going to walk you through exactly what you can be doing right now, today, to begin to actually unlock many of the things that will help you unlock the important areas of your life. This is going to be a good show. It's going to open up a whole new way of looking at your morning and evening routine. Stay with us, folks. The big question is this: how do those of us in the real estate industry with crazy amounts of ambition, how do we think bigger than the building of our own empires? How do we simultaneously seek success and significance, income and impact? My name is Justin Stoddard, and this is the Think Bigger Real Estate Show. Just this weekend, I got a phone call from a very good friend of mine who's struggled over the past number of years to really kind of find real direction. And although I won't reveal who this individual is, if this person happens to be listening, you are one of my favorite people, P.S. And the conversation was very much about some enlightenment that he is receiving in his life right now. Part of that has to do with he's on a spiritual journey that he hasn't been on a long time. Part of it, I also believe, is that he's starting to get really honest with himself. He's spending time reading very first thing in the morning, some very uplifting material. And then he's journaling. And that's how he starts his day every day. And it led me to remember how powerful journaling has been in my life. I want to take you back to when I was in high school. I used to keep a journal. And it wasn't until college that I really started getting really interested in it. I had a roommate by the name of Brandon Hoops. And he said, I've been writing in my journal for the past number of months. And it's so powerful to reflect upon the day and to write goals. And I thought, that's a really cool idea. So I started at that point, I started to actually keep a journal. And I kept it literally every single day for like the next 10 years, like legitimately. I went through an entire 2 years of serving a mission in Brazil. And during that time while I was there, I did not miss a single day. And it was challenging at times. And when I started to have kids is when I started to really have challenges. It was actually less than 10 years. But, the inconsistency in sleep caused me to kind of mess up my morning routine. And I've been sporadic over the past number of years. I would say not entirely sporadic, but I haven't been as consistent as I started off. And I learned to give myself a little more grace about not having to write every single day. But just recently, I've picked up the habit again. And I want to walk you through today how many benefits there are to actually being a consistent journaler. I'm gonna walk you through why this is so important to you, what journaling really looks like. I'm also going to talk about the how you should be doing it. And lastly, I'm going to talk about what you should be doing right now, because there are some things that will cause you to stop doing journaling within a few days if you do it incorrectly. And there's some things that if you do it very consistently, it will literally unlock reasons in your life about maybe why you want to be healthier, about how you want to actually find the right spouse, about how you want to be better with your income, about how you want to make more money, how you want to grow your business. There's literally so many things inside of you right now that if you just take this practice of journaling, stopping to think, contemplate, ask yourself the right questions, it will open up things for you that you had no idea that you had inside of you. So let me begin with this. Why journal? Let me start with this. I think the very first point I want to make is that journaling has the power to change your future. Literally, it has that your future destination will be different if you get in the habit of journaling correctly. Like you'll literally be in a different spot. I don't know how much more compelling I can make it than that, but your future, you will live a different life if you learn this one practice to do it effectively. Okay. Number two, it will change your present. All too often we struggle with things we have something lingering inside of us that's frustrating us, that's not quite right. And if we would just take a minute to stop and ask ourselves the question, write out the question, what's bothering me? Write out what's bothering me. And then begin to like put it down on paper and then ask ourselves, okay, if I were an outsider being asked these questions, what advice would I give? And we'll find ourselves giving ourselves some of the most rich coaching. You know, why is that? Why is it that we can give ourselves this great coaching? Well, because we know ourselves better than anybody else. And additionally, we've already received so many things, so many bits of advice over the years that we haven't yet applied. But when asked, what's the best advice that I could give to myself at this moment right now to get myself past this? We'll find that we know many of the answers. And not only do our stress levels go down and our frustration levels go down, but we actually start to make different changes right now. Okay. So again, point number 2 is that it changes our present. And number 3, it changes our past. You're like, wait, excuse me, what? This is a lesson that really caught my attention. It was from my mentor, Benjamin Hardy. Ben, if you're listening to this, enjoyed having you on the podcast. Loved having you give a testimonial of my book. I've been such a fan of yours and absolutely watching your career explode here over the past few years. If you don't know who Dr. Benjamin Hardy is, Benjamin is the man. I'm such a fan of Benjamin's. So he talks about this concept about how your journaling can actually change the past. It's like, what do you mean? The past is done. It's behind you. It's gone. We've learned about that, right? Yes and no. The way that we interpret the past is what the past is to us. So for example, let's say that we were abused as a child and we could in our minds have animosity and resentment towards certain people, right? Rightfully so, right? But if we were to say and actually have in our mind the reality that when we go through difficult things and we frame them correctly, we can actually use those things to our benefit. For example, oftentimes you'll find people who were abused as children who went on to help abused children when framed correctly. Now, sometimes when not framed correctly, they go on to abuse children, right? But if you actually reflect upon that, journal upon the difficult things that happened in the past and the good things, right? And the good things, you will actually find yourself able to reframe the past and change the way that you see it for your good. You'll start to realize that everything that happens in your life can be for your benefit. You may begin to believe, as I do, that we have a benevolent and loving heavenly parent who wants nothing but our good, and that the difficult things we go through have the ability to make us who we are intended to be. Now, whether or not you have that same spiritual understanding or belief as I do is irrelevant. Either way, you can frame the past, the things that you went through, in a new way to help you to be able to, number 1, be a better, stronger person right now. And number 2, to help people you couldn't help without having gone through that. So yes, your journal has the ability to change your past. Okay. So that's the why. Journaling properly can change your future, your present, and your past. If that's not enough reason to do it, I don't know what is. You can literally change everything about your life, including what's already water under the bridge. Folks, this is powerful stuff. Powerful stuff. I hope this is resonating with you. All right. So now that we're through the why of journaling, let's talk about the what. Okay. It's simply daily planning and review. Okay. It's simply pen on paper. Now, for years, I've done iPad on like Apple Pencil on iPad. And I think there's some benefit to that, no doubt. It's better than typing because your brain actually receives it differently when you write. But I just recently went back. In fact, here's why. My 13-year-old son, when I was out of town, dropped my iPad and broke it. And I'm like, I'm not buying another one right now. So I decided to buy a journal instead. And so I've reframed some of the things that I was doing on my iPad. I'm now doing it in my journal. And I'm telling you what, it's making a difference. I actually like it a lot better. So it's daily planning and review. Okay. Now I'll add to that. It's not just daily planning. That's where you should begin, but it also can be quarterly, annually, and even looking out 3 years, which is a great segue into how do you journal? I believe that you should journal at least 2 times a day, which includes this. In the very beginning of the day, you are setting out a plan for yourself, which includes being still, being quiet. Legendary leadership author and expert John Maxwell has a thinking chair where he goes to be still, to be quiet, to think. Okay, so if it's that important to him, again, he's written probably close to 100 books by now. I know it's over 80. Imagine that, 80 books. I've written one. I know it's challenging. The only way you can have that many good thoughts and ideas is to have stillness, time to reflect. Okay. Number 2 is to review your vision. Like, where are you headed? Review that. You actually need to know. Otherwise, right? It doesn't, I think in the words of, was it Alice in Wonderland? That like, where do you want to go? I don't know. Then it really doesn't matter which direction you go. Like if you don't have a destination where you're headed, it really doesn't matter what you do throughout the day. You need to connect with that vision to know where you're headed. That's point number 2. Okay. And then number 3 is to review today's plan. When you look at it through, you're quiet, you can see your vision, and then you actually outline today's plan. You can see if you're in alignment. In other words, you can see if what you're doing today is actually a true reflection of you being on the path to getting to where you want to go. Okay. So that's the minimum. You should be doing that in the morning, and then in the evening, you should be reflecting and asking yourself this question. If I had to live today over again, what would I do differently? Okay. Now that's not to beat yourself up. That's just to say, I'm getting better every day. Every single day, I'm getting better. And think about that. Many people just get to the end of their lives and they ask that question, boy, if I were to live my life over, what would I do differently? Just that alone is powerful. But imagine asking yourself that every single day. You would be forced to say, how did I do and what could I do better? When you put that question in front of you day after day after day, you will inevitably get better because you are coaching yourself. You're giving yourself the guidance that you need. Now, couple that with somebody who's not inside the same bottle, right? You've heard the term. What I mean by that is it's hard to see the wrapper from inside the bottle, right? I do believe that there's a very powerful perspective from a coach consultant. Again, as I mentioned, I have coaches, I have consultants. They can see things that I can't see. Business partners are a great one as well, right? They can see things that we can't see. And when they love us enough to be honest with us, we get even another perspective. And you ought to start with yourself. You ought to start by being really honest, because the reality is sometimes we pursue these other avenues, whether it be a psychiatrist, psychologist, whether it be a coach consultant, because we don't really want the answers. We can't handle the truth. And the famous line from the movie, what is it? Clear and Present Danger with Harrison Ford. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth. The reality is sometimes we don't actually, we don't want to be still with ourselves because we know the problem is. We know what's missing, and we just don't want to hear it. And we'd rather put this Band-Aid on it of having somebody else give us a different path that's maybe a little bit easier and not quite as honest and raw and as real and as truthful. So the reality is, like, this process, this daily review will help you to really wake up to that. Okay. So that's the how. Again, the why, we talked about that. The what, it's daily, at least daily planning. And review, and then how to do it 2 times daily. Now, I'm going to add in a third methodology here, or a third time. Anytime you feel yourself stuck, frustrated, up against a wall, not just like I'm against a wall, like I'm about ready to be tapped out. I'm talking about that. I'm just talking about, that's not quite working quite as well as I thought. Stop and write. I'm telling you, you're going to find incredible mysteries that come to your mind, right? For those of you that believe deeply in the power of the mind, like me, right? You'll know that your mind has many, many answers that you already know the answer. Now, for those of you who also have a faith background, as do I, you'll also recognize the fact that there's some divine intervention, that you actually believe that things can be revealed to you, that you can receive inspiration and things that you didn't know before, right? That now are made aware to you. Okay. Whether you call that God, whether you call it the universe, I don't care what you call it, but there is a higher power, I believe, that can help to reveal and inspire you to know things that you didn't know. They've got a bigger perspective. Okay. So, again, morning, night, and at any time where you feel like you need a little bit of help, you need a different perspective, stop and give yourself that perspective. Okay. That's how you do it. Okay. Now, the final step that I want to share with you is what now? What's the final step? The final step for you to actually making this practice is to buy yourself a journal. Guys, it doesn't have to be fancy, right? It doesn't have to be fancy. It can be, you can go to literally probably the dollar store or some simple bookstore and buy one. You can probably get one on Amazon. Okay. And that's where I got mine. Okay. And start the process of actually going through this. And you'll find that every single area of your life, and I believe that life is really made up of these key areas. Number one, your spiritual life, or could be a bigger purpose, something bigger than you, okay? Relationships. So think of it this way: spirit, mind, heart, body, enterprise. Okay, let me say that again. Spirit, mind, body, enterprise. So spirit would be purpose, something bigger than you, a bigger purpose. It could be a cause that you care about, okay? It could be your relationship with divinity, okay? So that's spirit. Heart are your relationships, the people who are most important to you, who you love the most and love you the most. The people who at the end of your life, if you were to say, I wish I would have spent more time with them, who are them? Who are those people? Okay, that's heart. Okay, mind is how you think, actually how you process, how you think. Okay, and the last one is body, or not the last one, but the fourth one is body, your health, your physicality, how healthy you are. And the last one is enterprise, right? Your business and finance. All 5 of those areas will improve, have the potential to improve if you pick up the habit of journaling, okay? Not only the past, present, and future, but all key areas of your life will improve if you take on this one habit of journaling. If someone were to ask me, keep in mind that oftentimes this podcast is me interviewing a big thinker. Well, today it's a monologue, right? I get the good fortune of sharing with you some of my treasures and insights. If I were to ask myself the same question that I ask every guest, which is, Justin, you're a big thinker. What is it that you do to continue to be a big thinker? You know what I would tell them? I would say journaling. I would say hands down, the very most important foundational piece to my growth is being quiet with pen and paper in hand and letting my own mind and inspiration from above guide my next steps. That is what I would say would be the biggest impactor upon continuing to be a big thinker. I want to thank you all so much for tuning into today's episode, this unique special episode on journaling. I invite you to do so. If this has been helpful, do me a favor and send me a message, even screenshot this and say, Justin, I got back to journaling, or I started journaling. That would mean the world to me. Best thing you can pay it forward is by letting me know and sharing it with other people. Thanks, folks. Have a great day. And in the meantime, go think bigger. Talk soon. You found value in anything that you heard here today, do me a favor and just take a quick screenshot of this episode. Tag me in it on social media. That will give you the heads up to create more content like this in future episodes. Also, if you are wanting to build your wealth advisory team in less than 30 days that gives you 2 to 4